Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm in beautiful Abbotsford, BC. Today I'm on the grounds of City Hall. This morning I got a call from city staff workers that work on the weekends on a heinous act that was taking place right after Valentine's, while everybody's eyes were supposed to be looking away. On the Abbotsford homeless, the vulnerable, and the weak. The cleanup, the beatdown, the smacking. My name is Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your mayor to transformate the Abbotsford Police back into the RCMP. I stood with great leaders behind me, beside me, and eyewitnesses of the heinous act this company did under its name. The brutal, selfish act by top elite investigators that covered an organized ring of a massive criminal ring. Land lifts, Henry's son in front of him, collaborating, fraud, loading elections, beaten down, racist act when they went after, and the Abbotsford Police Task Force went after Councillor Mogale to get him out of the election so Henry could win. A brutal attack by this police department. Then selfish gain at Cooper's Farm, Henry changing the schedule rather than an investigation led. Riverside, Henry's jack to his own, moving the bus terminal to his property. Henry pointing his brother on the board, Sandy Blue, Mark Warkentine, the whole thing. Today I may want to make that clear. Thanks to Henry Braun's son, when that information came, I took it to the Mission RCMP, not to the Abbotsford Police. Henry sat on the board, his son made it clear, and all the investigators that were doing it. Abbotsford residents and me owe the RCMP a tremendous thanks of what took place. The heinous acts by a private police force that was frauding Abbotsford taxpayers for an elite paycheck, racing their cars, stealing on their time cards, threatening residents, smashing personal property, all look at the uniform. You know who we are in this uniform. No punishment. And then the friends of friends of friends of friends in investigating. Abbotsford's quite aware with me that Watts was brought in here by David Eby to clean and hose down the problem that was coming. It was a Mission RCMP that knew when these acts took place and the mayor was controlling such brutal and all these men were underneath him doing this mousy stuff, as we would call it. He made it clear to go to the MP and the MLA, Mike DeJong. Rather than Mike DeJong say, what the hell's going on? He said, you cut a deal. This morning, Abbotsford work crew called me on a heinous act that took place. The work crew. The Abbotsford Police, right after Valentine's, the brutal men were put back on force, and the women that, you saw me compromise, the women were doing such a tremendous job. They gotta go. The Bulldogs had to be on team this morning for Watts. Get the Bulldogs. Watts made it an advantage to hide somewhere today, the chief, while his team, Ross, was in front of the city holding a little Canadian flag. And here's what took place by the staff. They said, Mr. Pelican, the Abbotsford Police are down in front and behind the city in the police building, throwing the homeless out onto the street in this cold, violating their human rights acts. Not only that, there's no way that they know, the city staff said, the workers, that there's been a commenced court order to remove them because nothing's been in the newspaper. It was a selfish act by an elite establishment this morning to sneak behind everybody's back. Who led that, I believe, was 453, an Abbotsford police officer. They asked me to come out and do something about it as your mayor on these god-awful acts in this cold weather against the homeless, because the Abbotsford Police are more important than anybody else. They need a warm spot and a warm cup of coffee. You know the heartbreak when you hear people say they lost their kids to drugs and they're living on the street and they can go down and help them kids. These self-centered, arrogant pieces of shit, in my opinion, are assholes. That's all they are, and they should be treated like that. Garbage men that abused a company's name for an elite establishment. This morning, 4:53, when I pulled up, 4:53, saw me pull in that parking lot where them city work trucks are. Why I pulled in that parking lot was because they had the city parking all blocked. 453 knew it was me. Right away, a dignitary to the dignitary on the dignitary, what was beside the dignitary. Here's the raid this morning. I could show you that, thanks to Abbotsford community. 453 approached my Dodge truck. My truck was running. I was in my truck, and I pulled in there to turn around. Rather than 453 listen and calm down, he came out about, you can't park in here. This is cities, and all the 453 was ripping it out of the strip. Mr. Pelican, he said, you got any driver's license? Well, if you know my name, this is how dumb he was, because he was caught in a scam. I gave it to him with witnesses and dignitaries on the phone. Tried to explain to this unrational idiot that I don't know how he ever got a job. Oh, Chief, I'll do a dirty thing for you, Chief. You just keep me. Violating. He knew that I knew you're violating the human rights of the homeless. But he was going to put the boots to me to save the company and the man that we're doing it. Oh, look at us. We'll never have an investigation if we go. This has to stop. These acts on the general public by the Abbotsford police are so they don't get caught in their organized elite criminal ring they were doing. There was a cleanup coming. Ross was at the front of the city taking a picture with a Canadian flag. I'll go out there and watch. Nobody's coming, and I'll boot the homeless. The Abbotsford workers called me on this heinous act. Chief Watts was nowhere to be found. I'm too busy with that Valentine's girl I had last night. Ooh, she was on juicer. This was Watts. Well, his guys were doing this. 453 makes allegations and all this, and I just let him run because the guy is stupid. That's why Watts, and they could talk him into doing this. You go do it because we'll just fire you. You're stupid, you're naive, rather than say, no, man, there's a violation of their human rights. It's immoral, it's disgusting, it's cold, it's snowing. You get your ass out there. 453, if you do anything, me and a little bit of boys will go out there. Look at me, give me the uniform and glasses and a gun, and I'll go. Abbotsford Police were no longer a police force, ladies and gentlemen. It was a heinous elite organization of a mob, rigging elections, threatening elections. It was Darren Braun, Henry's son, that was working under his dad that leaked it. Thanks to the Mission RCMP, it turned around. I know the players in the back of Abbotsford, because Watts was ordered in here by David Eby to clean and try to clean it. You're talking millions and billions of dollars that were being scammed through the city bank account. Rigging an election. Abbotsford Police Task Force in front of me, smashing my phone, smashing my cameras. The name would always save them. The name, and Vicky Hope's advertised for them. Vicky Hope should have been there this morning. This was a pure violation by 453. It would be that 453 be removed. I'm running for your mayor. My first obligation to Abbotsford now is to bring the RCMP in and bypass the provincial government because it has to be involved. You can't allow this much to continue and not have major investigations of election loading, threats, task force in front of people, smashing people's camera. It's all over social media. MLAs working with each other, the NDP PAM with Mike Dion, a scam on a scam on a scam. We just keep the private police. The private police then would halt investigations on Rob Funk, Cooper's Farm, Riverside, Henry's son in front of him. The scam Ross dumping his gas station in Mission on ag land. The eluding of the elections and the frauds. When I saw this, I asked great leaders and people that fight for the country to come in and help Abbotsford. And put my foot forward to stand forward. And I never would ever guess in my wildest dreams the heinous act by men in uniform, the brutal shit and garbage trash friggin' company, and it's begging and it's pleading. Last night we went on the road, we got 3 people with drugs and a gun. Give us a reward and a plaque. Abbotsford Chief did good. Abbotsford Police have to be removed for the safety of Abbotsford. I can tell you in my opinion here, that when I see an officer die in Abbotsford, I always think that it was retaliation on what they were doing behind the scenes and the general public didn't do. I've never seen any of this in my life, from Vancouver to Burnaby to everywhere. I saw law enforcement that's swift quick and deals with garbage crap like this. This was a buddy system right out of the Abbotsford Police from top investigators. I will run for mayor of Abbotsford and remove them. Also take their pensions and never see law enforcement ever again for what they did, this attack on residents. This morning's attack would outline this, that the Abbotsford newspaper didn't even print that the courts ordered them to be moved because it would be in the newspaper. Let me explain to you a little bit about law, because 453 should have never left the scene and came over to me, but he was worried about a camera. Worried about a camera. Oh, I'm going to get caught doing illegal garbage. Look at me, 453, Chief. 453 on duty, Chief. And then started being, you know who I am? Oh, here goes, uniform. Look at me, 453, haul ass up 453. That officer has to be gone. He's going to retaliate now because he's caught. They snuck out here this morning after Valentine's doing this. Let me tell you a little bit about law and the wisdom and knowledge of very smart men, our justice system. The courts know not to commence this restraining order on these. Please, it's the chief and his boys. Please, it's the chief and his boys and the mayor. Please, it's the chief and his boys and the mayor. Please, it's the chief and the boys and the mayor. Please, get the homeless out of here. Please, it's the chief. Because there's a violation of human rights. Everybody's kid can land up there. Some people have and pled it to the courts. The courts would probably look at it different if you had a warm place that you could move them to a location. They didn't. We saw what Archway Community Services done. We saw what King Haven done and all these other facilities. So they violate their human rights by bringing the junk company in to clean it up this morning and throw them in the snow. Then they come over and they're going to kick my ass because they're going to get caught. And 453 is going to lay me a lipping down on the law. So let me advise the chief to 453. There's a Human Rights Act that takes place to look after them homeless. That was an illegal, dirty, filthy, garbage technique that they were doing. A scam of a garbage, trash bunch of men. There's no need for 453 to stay on. 453's then attempt was to come over and then try to educate me about pulling in that parking stop to turn around. And I had no choice but to pull in there because they were blocking over there. But this is 453's smart thing. The other officer just watched 453 running his mouth, his big police mouth. I tried to explain, shut up, buddy, just shut up. Shut up, that's why you're doing this. You're a low life on the bottom of the pole and the police chief got you to do this. I'm turning around because you got it all blocked there and I don't want to back over you. Oh, you can't park here, you can't do this and this. Abbotsford City is owned by every active taxpayer. No police chief can tell you, or no 453 can tell you on the weekend that you can't turn around there. It's yours. It's your city. This was a pressure move. But first of all, the nutcase, the mental capacity of this 453 pulls his crew away and upsets his crew by walking, you could see clearly 200 feet over to where I was. Because there was a camera. I had to go do damage control. And then he puts his guys in harm's way from a stabbing and everything because these people are upset now that you're pulling them out first thing in the morning and their eyes ain't even awake, so they figure that you're a stranger and they're hallucinating because of the cold being frozen and they stab them. The next morning, police chief got a conference meeting this morning. One of our guys were attacked viciously by the homeless. Please feel sorry for the guy. He was rushed to the hospital. Abbotsford police chief should have been here. He wasn't. He was laying on some couch, in my opinion, with some luscious broad that he picked up for Valentine's Day, and he cursed 453 to do this. No resident should be intimidated, no resident should be threatened, and no resident should be blocked from putting a camera on an illegal criminal act that violates people's Human Rights Act, that puts people in the cold, and no officer should have did this. To 453, I suggest you get an education. You find a job pumping sewer out of a hole because that's how low you are and that's where you need to go. And I suggest you crawl in the Abbotsford Police begging the chief that you did it for him and he owes you. This was a dirty, filthy act done. But Abbotsford residents have had enough of being targeted and threatened from elections to loading to everything. How this started, ladies and gentlemen, why I'm here. Let me explain. Henry Brown knocked houses off the mountain. Then instead of going after the developer because it was bringing a lift to his land, his son was in front of him, counsel in his house, and collaborating with Ed and Mike and everybody else. Henry used his connection, his political power, and his Abbotsford police ties to threaten to isolate that. When it was supposed to be brought to the city and the diligence was supposed to be done, he handcuffed city engineers and everybody else from investigating, and then he used his ties with Rick Rakes and everybody else because he was an elite rich person and ordered threats. Then in the election, when he knew I was going to run, he asked the Abbotsford police to carry out brutal, heinous threats in unmarked cars called the task force. It was Darren Brown that ran his mouth off, and Abbotsford residents could watch his elite establishment unfold. The leaders and the ringleaders and the power people that were at the top of it was the Abbotsford A.P.D, Mike Sir, and Abbotsford's top investigators. When I learned that from Darren Brown, I put my foot forward to flush him out thanks to the mission RCMP, and it's all on the world stage. I asked great leaders and great people to come in because it was an attack on Abbotsford residents, and it was a violation to steal hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' money for a useless garbage police that couldn't even pull themselves up. They don't got enough speed to pull themselves off. That's how garbage this company was. Tax on families, tax on residents, and they sympathized all day long under this uniform and what they could throw in the newspaper to polish them every single day with their little tit-hole articles, and there was no leadership, there was no commandment, and this bloody watch stood this morning while that violation took place. 453 was a culprit of leading it, and 453, guys like that don't get another chance. They're dismantled. First they put the rest of their workers in harm's way. He had done something he had no business of. Then he came after a politician because he knows I'm running for mayor, and I want the RCMP to take Abbotsford for their law enforcement. That means a lot of them are gone. They won't be transferred over to the RCMP. They're gone, they're dismissed, their pensions are ripped out, and that's how law should be. I'm live here, beautiful Abbotsford, BC, to 453. Get an education on law, and then come out and tell the general public, at second hand, go start sweeping the bloody floors on the construction site that's frauding the job site next to you. You do never deserve to hold a law enforcement job anywhere in Canada. Live, Abbotsford, BC.